Welcome to the Pickleball Divas podcast. I am your host, Renee Rayles. Today we are at Atlanta Pickleball Center, and guess where? Atlanta. And I'm so excited. This is a fabulous place to play in general, but especially on a rainy day like it is today. And today I have general manager and head trainer. I know him as Lionel, but he's actually Dr. Ortiz. Dr. Ortiz, how you doing today?
Well, I'm a little bit cold. It's a little bit rainy, but it's always a great day for pickleball in here.
So tell us a little bit about Atlanta Pickleball Center. How many courts are we talking about? Let's hear about some open plays.
Oh, yeah. So in the Atlanta Pickleball Center, once you come in, you're going to find 10 indoor courts. And what we love about it is that compared to other courts, we have a lot of room. So you can run a lot and still get the ball. And facility counts with 101 clinics, 201, 301 clinics, private lessons, everything that you need to basically build up your game.
And I love that you just stated the thing about there's plenty of room, because there's a lot of places you go that, you know, it's a very tight area, and I get it. That's fine too. But this is one of those places, if you want some room to spread out, you got plenty of room here. I'd love to talk a little bit about, you guys have some 101 courses, and this is what I love. I hear people all the time. They say, I'd love to try pickleball out. Will you come play with me? Well, the problem is, though, you need 4 people to play unless you're going to play, singles.
Exactly.
And this is a great place to try it out, get started. You can also even get a paddle where you can rent it for a few dollars.
Yeah, so for those beginners, we have that 101. That's like you're going to learn your basics, how to play it. And once you know how to play it, your coach is going to tell you, depending on your background, how good maybe the level you are. And you can start going to the social play. The social play, kind of like an open play, but we like to call it like a social play because we divide it by levels. And from there, all you got to do is sign up, show up. You have 6 people around the court, maybe 3 or 4 courts, depending on the level. Winners split, losers go out, and you're just rotating and playing with a lot of people, which is one of the aspects that we love, that you're not just stuck with just one partner. You're meeting a lot of new people and just making relationships.
And I think that's something I'd love to talk about a little bit, because a lot of times people are like, how did you get into the ladies group that you're in? Or how do you know people to play? And it's all because of these open plays. Exchange phone numbers with people, because, yes, they have open plays, but maybe you want to play at a different time, or you want to check out another facility, to find 3 other people. Sometimes when you don't know people, can be kind of hard, and it's really makes it a lot easier once you start meeting people, because it is a social sport.
It is a social sport, and the best example is basically the group that you created with the other girls. Like, it started as a couple people who met up, and from there we just decided, let's do a ladies social play from Thursdays 10 to 12. And right now they're just building up that the amount of people they're just bringing in, and it's just really great to see just people besides the adult social just hanging out together, becoming friends, and just keep enjoying the sport.
Big thank you to my friends Kim and Helen, who put this ladies group together that has just been growing and growing and growing. And I love, that you can go to open plays and play with a bunch of different people. Then you can kind of play with your the people that you're close to. It's a great time. Now, what I would love to talk about is, how do you start to transition from, hey, I just started playing, how can I start to get good?
How can I start to get good? That's usually a really great question. And it's, for a lot of people, is personal. Some people will just love to play. They have their group, and they like to stay in that level until they start being the one who loses a lot, and they start thinking and asking the right questions. So it's like, how can I improve my game? Like, I've been playing with the same guys, and I'm staying the same, but they're improving. And from there, it's all about asking the right questions. And usually a clinic or private lesson will help you identify what are you doing in your game, and to take you to the next level. One of the biggest things, and this is where I think pickleball is unique in other sports also, is the fact that in order to get better, is the only sport that you learn the slow game, not the harder game. You become being a banger. We're all bangers in the beginning.
It's
but
fun.
Pickleball, it's fun. But there's going to come a time where it's like, they're getting everything. I'm not doing anything. I'm not progressing. So in pickleball, to get better, you got to learn the slower game, not the harder game.
And I heard Leah Jansen say it once, and she said, pickleball is a game of errors. And that so hit me because it's always the silly little dink that should be the easy shot,
Exactly.
but you want to do something else. You want to be tricky, you want to be fun. So I really appreciate you talking about that. But I also like to talk about, when do you know it's time to move up? I heard someone say a stat that said if you're winning more than 70% of your games, it's time to move up. Now, that was just their personal belief. So I'd love to hear from the head guy here over at Atlanta Pickleball Center for the head trainer. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that's a good stat. If you're winning 70, 75% of your game, it means that it's time to move up because at least you're beating 3 out of 4 of those guys. So if you're becoming better than those 3 guys, there's still probably one of those guys who's a little bit better than you, or you were probably having the weaker link in that game, and that's why you lost it. Still, you were probably the better player in that group. So it's a good chance for you to go up and see how your percentage actually changes. Maybe when you go up, now you're at the 30% and you're not the 70%.
And I think I also have seen when I played at all these different places, I did not grow up playing tennis or a racket sport. I mean, I played tennis before just for fun, but I didn't play it in high school or college. And I've met so many people that at the beginning that they got so good so fast because they played another racket sport and especially ping pong.
Yeah.
I played 2 ping pong players here, and they were insane. And I'd love if you could talk a little bit about why those skills kind of transfer over, and which ones are the ones that you think transfer best.
The best. Yeah, so obviously tennis players will have a lot of a good background, mostly because they have a really good sense of the court. They have really great mobility, so they're not afraid to move, get up to the kitchen. They actually sometimes become, they have a little bit more trouble in learning the slow game because tennis is a game of hitting hard, basically. You barely do softer stuff. So they have a really big transition there in trying to learn the slow game. But I always say in my lessons, the back of the court resembles more the tennis part. The front and the kitchen resembles more the table tennis. In table tennis, your attacks are slower. You got to be faster. It's mostly wrist stuff. It's not bigger swings like tennis. So once you're up to the kitchen, a table tennis or ping pong player will translate with a better shots and better attacks than a tennis player who will have probably better drives. For me personally, learning two-handed backhand was a little bit of a struggle in the beginning because it's definitely not a move that I learned playing table tennis. But like everything, it's all about practice, dedication, and drilling.
Exactly. And I don't want people to think, well, I never played those sports growing up. You don't have to. I didn't.
No.
It's taken me a little bit longer, but now I'm finally starting to get where I'm caught up because of just what you said. It's a slow game. And so while I'm trying to learn, some of these other things, they're trying to learn to slow down versus I don't know that speed up mentality because I wasn't a big tennis player. And it's also really fun to play with someone like that. For example, playing with a great tennis power forward. We have one in our ladies group. She's a blast to play with, not play against.
Exactly. Yeah, this is where they're going to hit out. And it means this is where pickleball is so fun in the fact that once you start mixing partners, the game changes every time because you have so many different backgrounds, so many different styles of going a little bit faster, a little bit slower. So the game every time will change a little bit. And that's what makes it so fun. And you met new people who are doing different stuff. And this is where that higher level, it'll become almost like a chess match. Now, that simple dink is a dink with a purpose to one corner, to create something else. And this is where a lot of the mentality, slower game, but also smarter game comes handy.
And I love that you mentioned smarter game because I know there's a lot of women that I've spoken to that they're like, I'm not necessarily going to move up and play against men because sometimes it's too much for me. I don't want to get slammed by one of them. For me personally, I love to dink them like crazy when it comes to.
Yeah.
I played someone the other day. The guy had to be 6'5". And so when you dinked, it was so hard for him to get low. And that's what I love about this sport because as much as it seems like, they'd be just great at everything, you become a little more level than you would in other sports. Not 100%, but more than in other sports.
Yeah. And I love that about the sport, the fact that there's not a specific build to play and be great on the sport. You can be shorter, you can be taller, you can be skinny, you can have a little bit more mass, and it doesn't matter. It translates to actually the skills that you have and how smart you actually play it. And sometimes if you're shorter, it's a disadvantage. They can love you probably more. But if you're taller and you dink them 100 times, they gotta get so low that you're probably gonna get them a lot. And it's amazing just to see just everyone play with everyone. Seeing someone from 75 years old playing with someone who's 20, 25, and the older guy is the one who's beating him up.
You haven't played pickleball until you have been beat by someone elderly wearing more than one brace.
Oh yeah, especially when you're at the beginner. That's when it happens.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, there's a lot of talk about when do I move up in the sense of where am I at when it comes to the pickleball scale? Am I a 2.5? Am I a 3.0?
Yeah.
And I feel like even when I've read the information on it, it still seems to be a little gray. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on that is it's always a little bit gray. It is difficult to know for sure. And the best way to know is probably when you're on a real tournament and tournaments around your area. This is where you're going to find out what's your real level. Because even if you come to our facility and you play maybe in the 3.0 or the 3.5, that will be the 3.0 or 3.5 from this area. Maybe the 3.5 area from up north could be a little bit better, could be a little bit worse, we don't know. But a tournament is where you find basically all the people from Georgia, let's say for example, and this is where you know like, oh, so my 3.0 maybe in my area is not what I expected from a tournament. In a tournament, you can probably find a lot of better players from the same 3.0 or people sandbagging at the same time on tournaments. So this is where, but in a more true sense, tournaments will give you a better sense of how you really are.
And when it comes to tournaments, I've heard a lot of times that people say people sandbag or they go down. If they're really a 3.5, a lot of times they'll play in a 3 or 2.5.
Yeah.
What, you know, you've seen a lot of tournaments, you've been in a lot of tournaments. What do you think of that? Is that true? Is that the best case to go, or should you try to play up?
It happens, and I think especially for doubles, because sometimes maybe one of them will be a true 3.0, let's say for example, but then he asked someone who was a little bit higher level to just play with him, and then he was not supposed to be there. But it would always happen. It'll give you a good sense of a better player, and just to keep it up. And it's a good strategy. Like if you have an example like that one where you just got to attack the weaker link and you got to still try to make your game and not follow the game of the 3.5, for example.
Very true.
And it's sometimes it's really unfortunate. I think the tournaments are doing in a better sense that if you have your duper, you can play down, but still it'll happen that some of the players, if they're new, they don't have a duper or something, they'll play a 3.5, 4.0, and maybe they were a lot higher. But I think it always will happen a little bit.
And the duper is the scaling, correct?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
So for someone listening, they're like, what's a duper? As a person that used to be a chiropractor or still is a chiropractor, you are a Dr. Ortiz.
Yes.
You know, what was your transition now that you're here at Atlanta Pickleball Center?
So basically, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I moved to Atlanta because I went to Life University to chiropractic school, and I graduated 2 years ago. Right now, I'm in the process of just getting my last exam for being licensed and start practicing. But I have probably delayed it more than I need to because I found pickleball August of last year, 2 years ago, and I just fell in love with it. And I've just been looking for excuses to be here 24/7 and keep up playing pickleball, growing in pickleball. And one of my plans is that when I take my lessons, maybe open up the office inside here.
I
Just
think that'd be
another
fabulous.
excuse
Yes.
for me to just be here every single day, every single time, every single hour.
Well, continue to listen to Pickleball Divas on all major podcasting platforms and check us out online.